Well, 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 look who's back for more VTuber drama. It's me. I'm back for more VTuber drama. I am somewhat self-aware. I know I've made 5 videos alone this year on VTubers. Well, technically 6 since I got that one video restored and that copyright strike removed. But personally, I blame the VTubers themselves. 2 years ago, I initially started off not knowing much about this community, but now I know the ins, outs, language, and lore. So at this point, it's terminal for me. I don't have long left to live with the amount of ionizing radiation I've been exposed to from this community. But nowadays you can't really escape VTubers. They're on every platform. There's so many of them to the point where even if you hate VTubers, you can probably find one with a personality you like. Ranging from the mentally insane
Princess Peach, what do you think?
to the ethically questionable.
Like I've been verbally abused by a small pink rabbit as of late.
Hey, listen, I'm black today, alright? Just like you. As in my hair is black.
You get the pass.
Oh, yay! I get to say it!
No, not this thing.
Even the top corporate entities are realizing the importance of VTubers, with some of them now appearing in McDonald's ads. But the one thing I haven't seen from the VTuber community yet is a Scouse VTuber, probably because nobody would be able to understand them.
Some maybes, I do absolutes. And, you know, like if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle, but she doesn't, so she's not. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I don't even think they know what they're saying. But another thing you can't escape about VTubers is their drama, as every time there is a huge scandal like a corporate VTuber agency that looked welcoming and prosperous on the outside was actually being ran like a sweatshop. Or the more common one, a VTuber isn't the person all their viewers thought they were and they were actually a reincarnation of Mussolini behind the scenes. Oh, and they have a boyfriend they never told their audience about. They always tend to focus more on the last part for some reason. But one drama I spoke about previously and was very late to the party, just like this time, and it was apparently so popular it reached outside just the VTuber community and is the first thing that comes up when you search VTuber drama, and that was regarding the Cinder situation. Now quickly, Cinder initially made her start on the internet doing ASMR content in 2020, and from there she would obtain enough money to commission a VTuber model and debut in July of 2022, and she would go on to gather a loyal audience called the Pyro Pups, and also make friends and connections with the top VTubers at the time. Onwards from that point, she would only grow. She took part in IRL concerts, events, even later partially owned gamer-subs, and also upgraded her model and debuted again. She was technically at her peak up until the point of April 2025, where the one thing every VTuber fears reared its head and set its sight on Cinder. That being the dreaded Google document. I think at this point Google documents have probably ended more careers than any terrible apology video.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
But this document was launched by Nanoless, the creator, or as they're referred to in the VTuber community, the mother of her VTuber model, and she was the mother of many other popular VTubers. The document accused Cinder of a plethora of things, with the main piece of evidence being Discord DMs between both Cinder and her supposed manager at the time, Redacted, and upon its release, a lot of other documents would also come out from different people, detailing their experience with Cinder and Redacted, and adding to a list of piling allegations. And the claims and allegations from the Nanoless document is as follows. And before I begin, Nanoless adds a disclaimer that Redacted often spoke on behalf of Cinder. Anyway, Nanoless accuses Redacted and Cinder of manipulation, talking badly about other creators she was supposed to be friends with, encouraging Nanoless to cancel work for those same creators, attempting to blacklist certain creators from working with Nanoless, trying to get Nanoless into an exclusivity deal which once again would affect people Cinder was associated with, which is where the line "it's just business" comes from. Another document would soon follow by Bao, a previous friend of Cinder, who was mentioned in the document and the Discord DMs, where she would go into how hurt she was and basically correct any slander by Redacted and Cinder in the Nano document. Other documents would claim Redacted wasn't just her manager but her boyfriend, and that Cinder had previously cheated on him. and other documents by VTubers such as Silvervale, Spite, and even a previous editor that worked briefly with Cinder and Red, adding more claims such as being very persistent with trying to get a collab, posting pictures without consent, ghosting events and people despite saying they were going to attend, and a VTuber coming out on her story of being accused of copying Cinder's design even though hers came first. Eventually Cinder would respond to these claims with her first Google document, which to say the least was very disappointing. She confirmed she was in a relationship with Redacted and she did cheat on him, but then kind of throws him under the bus, claiming she didn't know everything he was doing, including a lot of the business decisions and the pressuring of Nano to drop or blacklist certain people. And she says Red's hyper business oriented mindset influenced her, and that she only thought the exclusivity thing was regarding Silvervale. But she does apologise to everyone individually, but many just wrote this apology off as her throwing Redacted under the bus, and she will no longer be working with him. Now, a lot of the VTuber community was against Cinder at this point. Her own document did not save her or even attempt to sway the public opinion, and the phrase "it's just business" became synonymous with this drama. A lot of Cinder's pyro pups would become refugees in other communities. Some would even burn their own merch in retaliation. But some pyropups did hold on, with the argument this was blown out of proportion and possibly orchestrated against Cinder, with many pointing to a document by the VTuber Powder, the document being a perspective by somebody who is not involved in the situation and had the purpose of putting everything in chronological order and was said to remove a lot of the emotional context from the situation, which they believe makes the situation look a whole lot different. The main takeaways from this document being that Nanoless had told other VTubers beforehand before she dropped her document, including people such as Shylily and Bao, and they highlight how unprofessional this is from Nanoless, sharing DMs from one customer to another, and from there Shylily, Bao, and Nanoless decide to go public with the information.
Talked to Nano and I was like, Nano, I'm gonna be honest, some of the stuff you have here is heartbreaking. I'm thankful for you showing this to me, but I highly encourage you to share this with the people affected, especially Bao, but because, you know, that one nasty one where she sabotages Bao, especially that one. And Nano, the fucking giga chat she is, agreed. She agreed. So we made a group chat.
And then in the document it says they all dropped their documents around the same time. They questioned the claims of manipulation, especially around things like the exclusivity contract, when both of them were seen entertaining the idea. And also through the DMs, they claim Nano does have the capacity to make tough business decisions based on her own volition, like cancelling projects, and that Redacted or Cinder did not clearly tell her to cancel projects. And they go on to question the claim that Cinder knew everything Redacted was doing just because they were in a relationship, but she did somewhat know about things like the exclusivity deal. And they finish off by saying this situation could have been handled privately, which is a valid argument, but as I speculated in my previous video, the option to go public could have been because they didn't want other people to be affected and for others to come out about their own experiences, especially with Cinder or Redacted, of which Silvervale did come out with her own story where Cinder or her manager was doing the same thing with artists she was talking to, but admittedly she did not leak DMs or provide evidence. And once again, that is my speculation. And then you have the clip by Shylily where she said she previously did try and sort things privately regarding a different situation with Cinder, but it apparently did not work out.
People saying, why didn't you handle this private? We did once. We did. And she's only deflecting and pretending to be apologetic when put on the spot.
But admittedly, there was also no evidence of this. But yeah, I do agree, in a perfect world this could have been handled privately, but as soon as these documents dropped, they all cut contact with Cinder and blocked her. But back to the document, one of their final claims is that the whole situation comes across more of a career hit piece, and that Redacted did say a lot of bad things, but these were said in private and in confidence. But they also say that regardless, Cinder did do a lot wrong in this situation. But that is a quick rundown of the document used by people defending Cinder, and by some that were more speculative of the situation. And I will admit, as I did previously, this document putting things into chronological order and removing any emotional context does provide a different perspective. But that was the other side, so to speak, and some of the main critiques people had with the situation and the documents. But even still, the majority of the internet was against Cinder, and with her apology being somewhat poor with no evidence and throwing Redacted under the bus, it was clear at this point the public opinion of Cinder was not going to change, and following this she would go radio silent on most platforms. The only platform that still remained active was her Discord and the remaining Pyropups hoping she would come back. Because yes, even though she had been exposed for many things like viewing her friends as competition and things in her past like cheating, despite all of this she still had an audience to come back to and were still actively supporting her. But that was the initial Cinder situation, and months later the internet would slowly move on. Well, until in the aftermath, 6 months later, in October, she would return bringing this whole situation to the forefront once again.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
So Cinder would return in October with a 1,000-page document with screenshots of DMs and basically saying that a lot of people that accused her were basically lying, which not only meant that during that 6-month break she was constructing a document to rival a small percentage of the 40k lore, but now she was also going back on her previous apology, and not only that but also going back on her decision to get rid of Redacted, as they would remain in a relationship and he would be somewhat involved in her business, but he would not be managing the communications and would be more like a mod. And he also helped co-write this document. Right, if I was gonna go over the entire document, it would be the length of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I am not joking. Muujin did a video on it which is 6 hours long. Some people streamed reading the document and broke it up over multiple streams. So if you want the nitty gritty, go to those sources. If you want a simpler look with a summary of the events, check out VTubing Explains video on it. This is basically going to be the TLDR of the TLDR and focus more on the main points in the document. I'm doing this for you, by the way. I know you have nothing else to do with your day except maybe queue Dead by Daylight or lose your 3rd colony in a row on Rimworld, but I'm going to keep this condensed as possible. The document was produced by Redacted and Cinder after they spent some time apart after the whole drama. She says the two of them have had a history of communication issues, and because when all of this was coming out, everyone pointed the finger at her when it was mostly Redacted's actions. That is why she threw him under the bus, because she didn't know what else to do. And in the beginning, she does mention that she makes a lot of speculations in this document. She goes on to clarify some things she mentioned in her initial apology document, clarifying what exactly Red was to blame for, like holding a grudge against Bao, encouraging a relationship with Silvervale, and talking about other VTubers behind the scene. Clarifying even more later on about what she didn't know about, like Redacted speaking as if it was their shared opinion at times, with Redacted in his own section speaking about how he viewed a lot of VTubers in a negative light and as competition, and that he did not tell Cinder a lot of these things because he knew she disagreed with him, especially surrounding the Bao situation. Complete side note real quickly, why the fuck is this document in dark mode? She also clarifies in her first apology she made it sound like Red was brainwashing her into a more business mindset when she herself adopted that mindset. She goes on to list what she took accountability for in said apology, such as knowing there was an exclusivity deal, knowing that Silver was included in it, being resentful towards Silvervale, cheating on her boyfriend, neglecting her friends, guilt-tripping Nano, and getting overly attached to her work, just to list a few. And then she talks about things in her initial apology she lied about or straight up missed out, such as lying about not knowing Red spoke to Nano, about the VTuber spite, and missing out certain information regarding their experience with Silvervale. And then she provides a huge list of what her and Redacted are actually guilty of, which includes knowing Bao's model was cancelled but doing nothing about it, the situation with Silvervale and neglecting her friends again, intentionally distancing themselves from people, going back on agreements, and reassuring Nano it was okay to cancel with Bao. And then clarifies once again she did not know everything Redacted was doing, and that's her fault. And then she goes on to list things that she believes she was wrong about within that apology. The most important being that she now believes Redacted did not manipulate Nano, and believes he did not push Nano to not work with Silvervale. The document then throws out some heavy accusations, basically saying Nanoless lied, Shylily orchestrated this drama, and others were involved in this before it went public. For Nanoless, they provided a lot of DMs showing additional context and parts supposedly missing from Nano's initial document. There was the claim that Nanoless was open to gossiping about other VTubers, which obviously goes against her claim in her document that they involved her in drama, but she did comment on not wanting to hear about Silver drama. And that Redacted did not explicitly tell Nano to cancel models, she chose to cancel models such as Cotton and Silver's on her own. And that apparently in one instance she was going to blame her manager as an excuse for cancelling. But Redacted would make an offer that he apparently was only half joking about, saying he would pay the price for a model for Nano not to work with Silver. Regarding the Bao model cancellation, they would also claim that was a decision Nanoless made herself, because she constantly overbooked herself. But Red adds that it was wrong for Nanoless to bring this up to him and that he shouldn't have added his own opinion on this. And also in one instance that she hadn't even started on Bao's model yet before she cancelled it. And they would even accuse Nano of trying to make a deal to cancel Bao's model that would benefit her. Regarding the exclusivity deal, they claim Nano brought this up first, and even further entertained and negotiated for the deal, where she wouldn't work with certain people, and there was talks of another deal where she wouldn't have any new models for people. And with my interpretation of what Nanoless would later say in response to this, Nanoless would claim she was offered almost 400,000 for this exclusivity deal. At least I think it's that number. They might have meant something else. There is a few formatting issues there. It could be close to 4,000, it could be close to 400,000, or it could be something else. Cinder would claim she didn't know Bao and Cotton were included in this exclusivity deal, and Redacted supports this claim by saying he purposely didn't tell her about these details, and that Cinder only thought this was about Silver. Nano would later go back on the exclusivity deal so she could work with Silver, and later Nano's manager would get in contact saying she would no longer be doing work for a short period of time, and then Nanoless would release her document, the two of them would attempt to get in contact with her, and then she would block them. The overall claims for Nanoless's part of the document would be that she left out important context, cut off screenshots at selective points, apparently blamed model cancellations on Cinder and Red even though those cancellations were Nana's own decisions, and allegedly involved factors such as overbooking and burnout. They claim she participated in talking about drama, entertained the exclusivity deal and even suggested her own terms, which they used to question the claim that they manipulated her. They go on to theorise that these same screenshots were used when communicating with other VTubers who would also make their documents on Cinder, and the claim that all of this was planned due to all the documents releasing on the same day. Now with the accusations against Shylily, a lot of this is speculation on Cinder's end. One of her first claims is that Shylily was the orchestrator of the whole drama, and she never made her own document but instead pulled everyone else together to make a document on Cinder. Her main evidence being Lily's reaction to her apology.
Fuck an apology. And one thing that struck me specifically is when she dedicated a section to me and someone else. First of all, okay, I am petty. I didn't even get a section for myself.
And that Nano went to Shylily first with all the screenshots, showing the messages from Redacted, and then Shylily would claim this was weird or manipulative.
The one message that got everything rolling because I explained how that's weird, that's cringe and manipulative to do and bother Nano with. If she has a problem, why not come to me?
And from there they claim Shylily, not Nano, was the first one to inform people like Bao using this clip.
Stuff going on, and last Friday, Lily messaged me, and because I told her that I was about to go get that procedure done, she held off talking to me.
They would go on to claim and speculate that Shylily has always had something against Cinder because of instances like ignoring messages, not wanting to do collabs, not saying her name when she was raided, and a mistake Cinder made with the GamerSupps V-Card launch. And then once again they use a lot of clips from Shylily's response to her initial apology, with what they would say was petty comments like how she didn't get her own individual section and making jokes about the whole situation. They would go on to claim and speculate that Shylily manipulated Nano to think that Redacted and Cinder manipulated her, going off the messages Redacted sent, and that once again Nano lied to everyone, possibly meaning everyone she shared the screenshots with, specifically lying about her experience with Redacted, claiming so she could get out of accountability, possibly referring to her apparently cancelling models. And they also add the speculation that Nano did not put her own document together and that Shylily had something to do with writing it, claiming that things present in Nanoless's document was present in Shylily's response. Nanoless claimed manipulation was present in the messages, but it wasn't, so they claimed Shylily had part in that, and the claims of names being edited out of screenshots who are supposedly close friends with Shylily. Once again, a lot of the claims here are speculation and their interpretation of her response to Cinder's apology, but the overall claims were Shylily being the first Nano went to, later getting in contact with Bao, speculations that Shylily orchestrated the drama against Cinder and had a grudge against her, and also manipulated Nano and had a hand in writing her document. They also make claims against people like Silvervale, saying she lied about some things. Specifically the claim that other artists had similar experiences with Cinder, and they criticise that Silver has never provided these screenshots of these said interactions.
I've been contacted by other artists after my doc came out. And I guess I'm really glad that I put that part in there about worrying that she had been saying things about me, because that was true, apparently. Like, it wasn't just Nana, it was so many other people.
And they also claim Silver was another person provided the screenshots that were not showing the full context by Nana. They also claim they had no part in the cancellation of her birthday model because Nano did that herself, but Cinder did know about the exclusivity deal, at least against Silvervale. This is where they go on to speculate Silvervale hated Cinder, and talk about their own insecurities around being constantly compared to Silvervale, but once again this is speculation, but they use evidence such as conversations with Silver's mods, where Cinder's name was banned in her Twitch chat, and that Silver didn't respond to a lot of her messages or want to collab with her. In addition, they go into detail about how they did not copy Silvervale, even showing the entire design process of how Cinder came to be. And also later on that Silvervale is a master emotional manipulator, due to her allegedly lying and the aforementioned things, and basically not telling her to fuck off if she didn't like her. They also go on to combat a claim from Aruuu, who came out and basically said Cinder was only in contact with her to get close to Silvervale. They would claim she was lying and they were friends before this when they met naturally at TwitchCon, and the collab idea with Silvervale came from Aruuu, and they show all of their DMs to build the basis they were friends before this. And then they speculate Aruuu only did this because hating Cinder was popular at the time, and she could also relaunch her VTubing career from this. Cinder goes on to say she forgives her friends and does not hold a grudge, and she apologises to the pyropups but clarifies any pyropups that harassed people are no longer pyropups. And there is a message by Redacted saying a lot of this is his fault, and soon after Cinder would return to streaming. That is basically the document. There is a lot more, but those are what I think are the most important claims, but I would recommend reading the document for yourself. Now my opinion, if this document is to be trusted, Sinder and Redacted still look bad. Redacted as a manager should not have been talking about drama, especially talking as if Cinder agreed. And once again, it is still not confirmed Cinder knew everything Redacted was doing or did not know. But in his own admission, he kept things from her purposely and created his own grudges against certain creators, which would also be discussed with other people. In my opinion, Redacted shouldn't be allowed anywhere near Cinder's business going forward, even if he has now been demoted. Cinder shouldn't have let her insecurities about certain other creators consume her. She did somewhat know about the exclusivity deal, at least the part that involved Silvervale, and overall she neglected her friends, was a terrible friend, and was very business focused at times, but also neglected to keep Redacted in check, which was ultimately her responsibility. She also should have taken the hint when people did not want to associate with her and try not to force those interactions. However, if you believe the document, Nanoless also was very unprofessional. She talked about drama as well, even at times talked about other clients' projects, and later provided DMs to other clients and left out a lot of context once again if you believe the document, so she wouldn't have to explain to other people like Bao why they cancelled her model. I think from these screenshots, if they are to be trusted, I don't think Nano was manipulated. I think they entertained a lot of the propositions and showed she could say no at times, and even offer her own terms to those deals. Regarding Shylily, she was the first person Nano came to and then later Bao, which is discussed in their response streams, but I do think a lot of the claims against Shylily are speculation without additional concrete evidence. With Silvervale, I just think she did not want to work with Cinder. I don't know about the other claims, but I think she showed multiple times she did not want to associate with her. But I think it would be useful to see those messages of those other interactions she talks about with artists who apparently had a poor experience with Cinder. Ultimately, Cinder still looks bad, but with this document it makes a lot of other people look bad, and also calls certain things into question. When publishing the document, a number of people would respond, like Aruuu talking about her part in the document, saying it's a he said she said situation at this point, and then going on to talk about one of the alleged experiences she had with Cinder.
Meet her by deep hatred like Aruuu claimed. So this completely It's a he said, she said situation at this point, because this is not true. Cinder literally told me that Silvervale inspired her and that one of her biggest dreams was to collab with Silvervale. And so we were supposed to go in pairs of 2. So each person had the pair of 2, and me and Cinder got paired together. And when me and Cinder were going to go do this thing, Cinder pulled this VTuber down, whispered something in her ear. Literally, this is happening right in front of me, by the way. So then that VTuber grabbed Cinder right in front of me, by the way, after Cinder and I were supposed to go in together, took Cinder to go do the thing, and then came back and took me to go do the thing. And it happened right in front of my fucking eyes. So yes, I felt like you didn't fucking like me.
Bao would respond by mainly talking about the grudges that developed about her in the document, and adding more information to that, but not really addressing anything else in the document, or at least from what I've seen.
Are worth putting into Google Docs now, such as, oh my god, like, can you, guys, I don't know, maybe like, taking my editors out for dinner, and, you know, one of my editors flying in from the Philippines. Apparently, prioritizing feeding them is a cause for, you know, a grudge against me.
Nanoless would respond on Discord saying she's sorry about bringing all this mess to the VTubing community, and apologizing to friends and clients included in the document, and talking more about the exclusivity deal, and that cancelled projects were communicated months beforehand, but maybe not Bao, she doesn't remember, and she realises her first document looks weird, but it was more about the blacklisting of certain VTubers. But the reaction from the community was mostly against Cinder. If she had released this document instead of her initial apology, it would have had a bigger impact, but one, this document probably couldn't have been crafted in that time, and when she did publish this document, the attention to the situation had already passed its peak, and people potentially had already made their minds up about the situation. Also, the document being 1,000 pages also put a lot of people off. I know she provides a lot of what she says as evidence and speculation, but I think if it was a shorter document, a lot more people would have read it, instead of saying, nah, I ain't reading all of that, I'm sorry or happy that happened to you. Some said she's a liar, some say she missed the point and can't be trusted, and some just wrote it off as high school level drama. But yeah, it did not have the most positive reaction, but Cinder would return to streaming with 10,000 viewers and a warm welcome from the Pyro Pups. She would not go into the drama in said stream, but as of recently she is now averaging 2,000 viewers per stream, which is still impressive and proves she did have a community to come back to. Recently there was a bit of drama where Bao posted a few things on Twitter which caused an uproar in the community, and on Discord she blamed the Pyro Pups for some of the hate, but it's uncertain if Pyro Pups had anything to do with it or not. Some people are opening back up to Cinder like artists, but they do seem to get a lot of backlash for just associating with Cinder.
I asked for no pickle and they give me the fucking McPickle pounder. What the fuck is this
In conclusion, if you are ever in business with somebody, especially a manager, know what the f they are doing. Don't discuss personal things in DMs with people involved in business, especially if it is gossip, or you are just talking shit about other people. There's probably a lot of other things I could say, but the only thing that comes to mind right now is, for the love of f***ing God, please stop releasing documents, make videos instead. I'm sick of reading. At this point, I'll even take a fucking Excel spreadsheet of allegations. But yeah, I'm tired, and that's all I had to say, and bye-bye.